In this final portion of the lecture concerning Proverbs chapter 5, let's draw together some of the main implications that we find in this lesson from the grandfather sage. The grandfather began his series of lectures in Proverbs 4 by conclusively establishing how desperately important is the acquisition of wisdom. That was the topic of Poem 1 in the Grandfather's series, starting with Proverbs 4, 1 through 9. Next, he held the youth accountable for failing to act on past instruction, and, in the fashion of a reprimand, challenged him to cease his current trajectory and get back on track, or else. That was the focus of poem number 2, beginning in chapter 4, verse 10, going through verse 19. In his third lecture, he proceeded to outline what on-track behavior would look like. Poem number 3, starting with chapter 4, verse 20, going to the end of that chapter. Beginning with safeguarding of the mind, that fountainhead of one's entire life, the grandfather listed one body part after another and told how it should or should not behave. Now in this fourth lecture, chapter 5, 1 through 23, the grandfather discloses why he went to such lengths instructing about proper body behavior there in poem number 3. For it is with his body that the youth either will succumb to the seductions of the foreign woman and so suffer in his body consequent deterioration and death, or alternatively in his body he will honor the exclusivity of marriage, and so we find the sage desiring that the youth may also enjoy the exquisite delight and physical refreshing that marriage can bring. 4 primary lessons weave through this poem. First, sexual promiscuity produces hazards both swift and serious. Verses 3 to 6 and 7 to 14 bring this out. Reflection on the tortured experience of Samson with his pursuit of foreign women may have given rise to some of these cautions. Second, the exclusive bonds of heterosexual marriage comprise a source of exceptional and lasting personal delight. In addition, solid marriages generate resources that will refresh many in the wider community. Third, the character trait ensuring that the youth will make the right choices and travel the right path consists of this, the character trait of receptivity to reprimand. The sage provides a vital service both by showcasing the importance of receptivity to reprimand and by modeling one technique for cultivating that same receptivity, namely, using testimonials from persons who, through failure, discovered the folly of their own obduracy. Fourth, one might wonder, where is the Lord within these counsels? Why does the sage not appeal to divinely authorized censures such as, "You must never commit adultery"? In fact, the Lord does figure in this poem toward its close, and here we refer to verse 21. All-seeing, he brings benefit to those whose ways are straight before him. But interestingly, the punishment of wrongdoers is not directly attributed by the sage to God. Instead, the misdeeds themselves bring about their own retributive demise. We find this in the last 2 verses of the lecture, verses 22 and 23. Arising from each of these 4 lessons, the sage offers crucial wisdom for societies of today. First, he would caution societies that place a premium value on sexual euphoria above the value of marital fidelity between a man and a woman. he warns that those who pursue promiscuity only accelerate toward a deadly destination. So-called free love is not free at all, coming at the cost of emotionally scarred children, aimless, narcissistic adults, and communities that have been hollowed out, a gaunt, starved existence empty of resilience. Second, the sage would confront those who dismiss marital fidelity as too constricting, disposable, and unfulfilling. In fact, the sage teaches it is only within the disciplines of marriage that the most profound fulfillment can be realized, benefiting both the marriage itself and also the community comprised of such marriages. So rewarding is such a marriage that the sage dares any to propose an illicit relationship capable of generating such deep and lasting benefits. Third, if some demur at the suggestion of sexual purity and the honor of an exclusive marriage between a woman and a man, the sage would inquire how they respond to reprimand of other sorts. Perhaps a testimonial of failure would capture their attention. Else, such a one will die for lack of discipline. See verse 23. Fourth, to those who resort solely to divine censures when issuing counsel, the sage would urge a different approach. Explain that God sees when one chooses the right and will reward it. That God therefore can also see when one does wrong will be patently clear. And point out that the misdeeds and sins themselves will be the undoing of the wayward. As we've noted earlier, this fourth lecture, Proverbs 5, extended the body behavior counsels of the third lecture at the close of chapter 4. It does so by disclosing the hazard that makes such self-control so necessary. Without disciplined control over the behavior of one's own body, the youth would fall prey easily to the seductions of the foreign woman. Reference to the terms pave and track and ways, seen first in 426 of the previous poem, now seen in 520, reinforce the continuity of these two lessons, Poem 3 and Poem 4. Although this fourth lecture completes the first three-themed cycle of lessons, a verbal link bridges to the poem that will open the next cycle. Within the conclusion here of Poem 4, the sage explains that misdeeds will trap the guilty. Verse 22 of chapter 5. And as the next poem, Poem 5, begins in Proverbs 6, we find that the youth there has in fact become trapped, using precisely the same word. That's chapter 6, verse 2. On that basis, the sage will issue the reprimand that we discover in Poem 5, which spans chapter 6, verses 1 through 11.